Police interrogations and analysis videos of police interrogations and the cases that surround them are quickly becoming a very popular genre on YouTube. An entire sector of content popularized and streamlined by channels such as JCS Criminal Psychology and Matt Orchard Crime and Society. These types of analysis videos garner so much attention due to how raw, unfiltered, and honest they are. In an interrogation room, the actions of every individual within, suspect and interrogator, is made with purpose, and the response to those actions are genuine. There are no scripted lines, no scenes, and no do-overs. What makes them even more compelling are the stakes. More often than not, when an individual is sitting in an interrogation room, the outcome of that questioning and the subsequent investigation could have significant impact on that person's life, ranging from personal or public embarrassment to high fines or community service, to years behind bars, or even earning a spot on death row. This means that suspects placed in an interrogation, in no uncertain terms, are arguing for their lives, or even watching their lives come crumbling down around them in a flood of evidence.
There's a reason you feel sick to your stomach, and when people hold stuff inside, it makes you physically ill. And I can just tell on your face, I could tell from the second you walked in, that you were wanting to just come clean and just be done with this.
However, what happens after the interrogation, after the court case, after the sentencing is arguably just as compelling. When the arguing and the fighting and the deliberating is done, what remains of the individual who once sat in that interrogation room chair? How do the individuals who are convicted of these crimes act when there really is nothing left to be done but accept the punishment they've been given? Some resign to the fact that the choices they made led them to where they are now and accept culpability, even if it's just to themselves. Some do not. A large factor in how someone reacts when interviewed while in prison is hope. If there is hope for a potential release or appeal, it's much more likely that the individual being interviewed will put up some kind of front in order to come across a certain way, or maybe shape the narrative in a way that will best serve them down the line. On July 27, 2013, Nace Houchin Jr. entered the home of Dana MacKay and beat her with a breaker bar and stabbed her to death. It was later discovered he was hired to kill Dana MacKay by his ex-wife, Nicole Houchin, and Nicole's new boyfriend, which was Dana's husband, John MacKay, who was a staff sergeant at the time. During the following Jailhouse interview, which was conducted by Wavy 10 News, the full investigation had yet to be concluded, and the court case regarding the death of Dana MacKay had yet to occur. What you will see in the following interview is John MacKay's attempts at crafting a narrative to absolve him of his wife's death. You will also see many unsuccessful attempts to elicit tears.
I guess the best place to start would be, obviously the police are charging you with conspiracy, with being a part of this, and with first-degree murder. What do you say to those charges? It's all right, you take your time.
My wife is dead. It's not enough.
What do you mean when you say it's not enough? What do you mean?
I'm still fucking alive.
It's very apparent as you observe MacKay's behavior how much effort he is putting into looking sad. He furrows his brow, frequently looks down, forces sniffles from his nose, frowns incessantly, and creates long intentional pauses between his responses, as if simply talking about his wife is making him emotional. However, his eyes remain dry, his speech remains unimpaired, his sniffles come and go sporadically, and his forced frown does nothing to indicate that his feelings of guilt, remorse, or love for his wife are genuine at all. Rather, it appears he chooses to use this interview as a way to paint himself as a victim of misunderstanding, a man who is heartbroken and distressed over the tragic and surprising death of his wife. It doesn't really work.
According to a police report, there were emails exchanged between you and the other woman. How do you pronounce her name, her last name?
Houchin?
Yes, Alton. That you had sent her an email asking if the deed had been done yet, and if it had, that you would be forever grateful to her and show her that every day. Did you in fact send that email?
I'm sure I did.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I'm sure I did.
You did. You sure you did? I don't know if the police had shared with you the circumstances, but it sounded like a pretty violent killing. Your wife had multiple stab wounds on her face. The bedroom door had been kicked in. Was it supposed to go like that?
It was supposed to be just a fantasy thing. That's all we ever did on emails and stuff. Fantasy. Everything that we ever did was fantasy. Fun. It's craziness. It never should have went this far. It wasn't until I couldn't get my wife on the phone when I realized that something was wrong. It might actually be real.
The interviewer recounted the brutal attack and murder of his wife, who MacKay still professes to love and care about. This triggered almost no emotional reaction from him, despite him putting on the front of being distressed seconds earlier. Instead, he calmly states that it was simply some kind of role play gone wrong.
And then when I couldn't get in touch with her and I couldn't get in touch with her mom and her stepdad, it started sinking in. And I was up in New York at the time, and I was driving back when I finally was able to talk to the detective, and he said that my wife had been really killed.
So that email that you sent out saying, has the deed been done? If so, I'll be forever grateful. You never got a response to that particular email then, or did she ever tell you, yes, it's done?
On July 24th, a few days before Dana's murder, John MacKay sent emails to his mistress confirming that his wife would be killed by the time he arrived back home from New York.
I don't remember. Emails, I mean, you can send a text or an email in seconds and forget about it. So I couldn't tell you 90% of anything I've ever sent to anybody. So I don't know.
And the rear garage door is where she was supposed to have gained entry to the house. Did you leave that door open for her? Did you tell her about that door?
I told her the door was open on occasion, yes, but other people have had keys to my house. When I moved into that house, 7 or 10 days after we had moved in, a kid walked into the front door that was locked with a key to the house. He was with a cleaning company. One of the things that we were going to do was change the locks on the doors. The only door that ever got done was the back living room door. So, yeah, I did tell her that the door would be unlocked, but my wife checked the doors all the doors in the house every day.
Staff Sergeant, the question I have to ask you, though, sir, is if this was just supposed to be a fantasy, why would you relate a detail such as where a door would be unlocked, where entry could be gained to Ms. Couchin if this was only supposed to be a fantasy?
I don't know. I don't know. I have no clue.
And in the fantasy, was the killing supposed to be carried out the way it was with that level of violence?
No, nothing like that. No.
How did the scenario play out in your fantasy?
In my fantasy, she fell down the stairs, maybe. Something like that. Nothing like...
Or you mean pushed down the stairs?
Well, my wife had balance issues because of the surgery she had a year prior. And every once in a while she would almost fall down. And then our dogs would always be under her feet. So it's not crazy to think that the dog would trip her, because my dogs have actually tripped her a couple of times in the past. So that would be a crazy fantasy that, hey, she fell down the stairs because the dog tripped her.
I'll let you listen to that little segment one more time.
So that would be a crazy fantasy that, hey, she fell down the stairs because the dog tripped her. But
that's not a fantasy about killing someone. You said you guys had fantasized about killing her.
Yeah.
This isn't a police interrogation. The time for that is long past. However, the interviewer here still challenges MacKay's narrative in the same way a detective would, and as soon as he does, MacKay enters defensive mode. The look sad protocol has been entirely dropped for the time being, replaced with the explanation protocol, and he's not doing either one very well.
Like, hey, let's kill her and then we can go and run away and be together forever. But, I mean, that never works. I had a job as of yesterday. She had a job, responsibilities. You're just not going to somehow find $1 million on a corner and run away for the rest of your life. So it was just bullshit talk. I mean, if you wanted to run away right now, could you? I can't. I couldn't 2 days ago. I had $152 in my bank account 2 days ago, and I made it from Upper New York to the house with that much. With all that, that's it. So there's not like there was any realism to it, no truth to it, because I wasn't going nowhere.
It sounds to me, though, almost like the only thing you're lamenting right now, though, is your situation. I mean, what about the fact that your wife was killed?
Once the interviewer calls MacKay out on the fact that he seems to not care about his dead wife, the look sad protocol immediately returns. His face darkens, his eyes drop, his brow furrows, and the frown returns.
If I spend the rest of my life in jail because of what happened to her, it won't be long enough.
So what you're saying is you're ready to accept the punishment that comes your way.
No matter what, my wife is dead. And because of what I said, somebody killed her, I think. I don't know.
So Staff Sergeant, you're telling me then you never said to her, go there on this night, do it tonight, do it then. It was never planned to that detail.
No. I mean, I've been in the military a long time, so whenever I look at a situation, I look at it from every aspect, all points of view, and no matter what I'm doing, I always figure out every option, every aspect of it. And that's just one of those things. When you're talking to somebody, you just naturally talk about every aspect of everything. You know.
But didn't it occur to you, I mean, if you were dating this other woman, you guys were having an affair, okay, and you've admitted to that, correct? That you were having an affair with this counselor, okay. Didn't you have some indication of what her personality might be like? I mean...
No, she was a great person. Every time I ever saw her, she was a great person. She had an anxiety issue, yes. She had, she was taking medicine for anxiety, but not for crazy want to kill somebody.
And it wasn't just a killing, and I don't want to harp on this again, Staff Sergeant, but I have to bring it up, and that is that it was a very violent killing. Do you know that one of your wife's fingers had actually been severed off?
No.
You had not been told that? Police investigators didn't tell you that?
They showed me a quick picture of something, and that was it.
When you saw the picture, surely that must have relayed some of the level of violence to you. What did you think when you saw that picture?
That if I ever got my hands on the person who actually did it, with 3 seconds I would kill him.
Knowing now who did it, at least according to who the police say did it, do you still feel that way?
If I have the option and the opportunity, she's dead. That's all there is to it.
So, in no circumstance would that relationship ever continue, even if, for some reason, the two of you were let out?
If it's found that she is guilty, if I have a chance, I will kill her. No questions asked.
It sounds a little strange you saying that right now when you had fantasized about this very thing with her.
Fantasy and reality is two different things, are they not? So when you're playing in this game, everything is cool because you can just go, oh, I didn't mean that, I hit the reset button, or whatever, I'll see you tomorrow. So at the end of the day, well, you can just put that over in the corner and don't worry about it no more, or don't think about it. But now that it's reality, everything's changed. It doesn't matter anymore. And if I die, I die. But if I can take her out too, I'm gonna. If she's guilty, if I could take her out, I'd kill it right now.
And then you'd be facing another murder charge.
My wife is dead. I really don't care.
To hear you talk about your wife like that now, to make a statement like that now, why would you have been having an affair with another woman in the first place?
My wife got very sick a year ago. She had hydrocephalus, very debilitating. She couldn't move, couldn't talk very well, didn't remember anything. Shortly before she was diagnosed with it and it started getting really bad, I had taken a second job. Just for fun, for extra money, play money. And she got real sick, and then I took that job, and I needed that job just to make ends meet. Gone 20 hours a day. I see my wife 2 hours a week. Things just happened. And she wound up working at the same store, and they put us on the same schedules, and we became friends, and then it got more. And then I got into this relationship with her, and it just got too deep, I guess. It got, the fantasy part was a lot of fun, you know.
Did you have any communication with Ms. Couchin in any shape or form after the murder happened, whether you knew about it at that point or not? Did you guys exchange any kind of communication after the fact?
A little bit, yes. Yes. That weekend, she had told me that she had to go to Fredericksburg to pick up her sister's twins because her sister wanted to give them kids up. So her and her mother went up there to pick up her niece and nephew. And then she told me about how the clutch went out in the car and they limped home, and then they had to go up the next day in her vehicle to go get the kids. So yes, I had conversations with her, and it was about kids, about her kids, her niece and nephew.
The subject of your wife didn't come up at all? And you know, the case they're building on this is that you did this so that you could have the relationship with Ms. Couchin, and so that you wouldn't have to worry about a divorce and alimony and losing property and whatnot. What do you say to that?
It had come up, yeah. To talk like that, it come up, yes.
When you had the fantasy discussions, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
What was said?
I told her that I was not leaving my wife. I said, if Dana would agree to an equitable divorce, we would get divorced, and that would be fine. But she wants to stay. She wants to work through this, the affair. She wanted to work through it. Go to counseling like we started, make our marriage better, and then come March, move from here to go somewhere else, because that's when I was supposed to move.
You said that to Ms. Couchin, that if your wife was willing to work through this, you were going to stay married?
I told her I'm not divorcing my wife. If she wants to stay and ruin my career and all that, I'm not going to divorce her. If it's an amicable divorce, we will get divorced, and then her and I would try life together.
What was Ms. Couchin's reaction to that?
She said she understood, always.
And at no point did she ever relate to you that she had actually gone over there and killed your wife?
She never said that she went and killed my wife, no. She never did. Not one time did she say, I killed your wife.
Notice how quickly and decisively MacKay answers this question regarding whether or not Nicole ever actually admitted to killing his wife. He can confidently state over and over that no, Nicole never actually stated that she herself killed Dana. This was a truthful statement. However, observe the hesitation MacKay exhibits to answer the following question regarding if Nicole ever mentioned planning to kill Dana, something she definitely did, in person and in email correspondence during the days leading up to the murder.
Did she say she was planning to?
She said she had thought about how she would do it, yes. Yes.
And what did she say? What were those plans? What did she think?
Fall downstairs, make it look like an accident, something like that. Nothing like what happened. No. Because she's a small person. I don't even know how I could even think about her being able to do stuff like that. I don't know.
You're talking about your girlfriend?
Yes.
Are you just... I'm wondering, if you'll allow me, I'm wondering, Staff Sergeant, if you feel the way you feel because of the way the crime was carried out, because of the violence involved. If Ms. Couchon had just pushed your wife down the stairs, would you maybe feel different about this?
No. My wife is still dead. I never wanted her to die. I just wanted her to divorce me amicably. That was it. There was never any, well, she's dead, it's good, let's go. I mean, there might have been talk about it, yeah, but it was not act upon it, never. Never act upon it.
Here, MacKay unwittingly gives away one of the key factors that investigators look for when trying to identify a murder suspect: motive. He states that what he really wanted was for his wife to divorce him amicably so he could go be with his mistress. However, as he mentioned earlier, this is not what Dana wanted. She refused to agree to a divorce, which in his head gave him only one other option, which fits well in line of the fantasies he described earlier on in this interview.
I mean, it's like people playing World of Warcraft games. They get into that character for 12, 14 hours a day, but once they get out of the character, it's what they just did before. It's not real. And that talk was never real. Not for me. It was fun. It was just, man, if we lived in a crazy world, the crazy shit we could do, that was it.
Now that it's all really happened.
Prepare yourself to see MacKay try so incredibly hard to generate tears of some kind, but ultimately fail.
What would you say to the family of your wife and your family?
If I get out of jail anytime before I'm dead, it's too soon.
Do you think that might happen?
I don't care. Don't.
Do you intend to cooperate with police throughout this investigation and through the trial? So you are willing to testify against Ms. Couchon?
Yes.
Have the police discussed that with you? Is any opening up any other options for you?
No, they just told me, they kind of bullied me, but they told me to tell them what I knew. what they knew. Just
Sir, I can't think of anything else I have to ask you. Is there anything else you would like to say before we conclude this?
it doesn't mean much of anything, but I mean, obviously, if I could change it and me dead instead of her, I would.
The
pain I put her parents through.
Did you guys have any kids together, you and your wife? No kids. Okay.
We had 2 dogs.
2 dogs.
Yeah.
In early 2014, all 3 individuals, John MacKay, Nicole Houchin, and Nace Houchin, were indicted on capital murder charges and pled guilty to first-degree murder to avoid the death penalty. The hope of a potential release and the need to look a certain way for the public or craft a desired narrative can greatly alter how genuine someone in prison is when they're interviewed. In the case of John MacKay, yes, he was behind bars. However, he had yet to be convicted or sentenced. There was still a reason for him to hide his true motivations and feelings regarding the crimes that were committed, which is still fascinating to view and analyze. However, it doesn't give the viewer a genuine understanding of the perspective of the individual committing the crimes, even if that perspective is horrible and monstrous. On July 19, 1994, Paul Jennings Hill went to the Ladies Center abortion clinic in Pensacola, Florida, where he shot and killed John Britton, a clinic doctor, and John's bodyguard, retired United States Air Force Lieutenant Colonel James H. Barrett, with a Mossberg 500A shotgun at close range. Barrett's wife, who was with them at the time, was also injured. He then laid the gun down and waited to be arrested. During the trial, Hill attempted to represent himself and entered a plea of not guilty to the charges of 2 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of attempted first-degree murder, and 1 count of shooting into an occupied vehicle. On December 6, 1994, Hill was found guilty and sentenced to death.
Defendant Paul Jennings Hill is hereby sentenced in count 1 to death for the murder of Dr. John Maynard Britton.
Circuit Judge Frank Bell said he found no reason to alter the unanimous jury recommendation.
Your Honor, the word of the Lord says, touch not mine anointed, neither lay any charge to my elect.
Sir, you need to step right
This
up
man
there.
is innocent and his blood will be on your hands
Supporters of Hill call him a soldier in an escalating war.
and on the jury. This
Hill was hustled out of the courtroom after that outbreak. Regina Dinwiddie was charged with disturbing an assembly.
Disorderly conduct.
I did not act in any disorderly way whatsoever. Paul Hill is innocent.
He was executed by lethal injection on September 3, 2003.
Revelation chapters 20, 21, and 22, and other scriptures relating to the kingdom of God. And he was quite at peace, and he was looking forward to going home to be with his Father in heaven.
And did he express any doubt, any remorse for his actions?
I've known Paul Hill over 10 years. He has never once, including today, including the time that I was let out from his presence, that even when he was on the table today, when he was actually receiving the lethal injection, he said innocent babies deserve to be protected with the same way that born babies deserve to be protected. And he had no regret, no remorse. He never doubted for a moment that he did the right thing.
Reverend Spitz, I wonder if you could just tell us what it was like for you in the room at the time of the execution. A reporter, Brian Cabell, was there. He talked about a little bit personally what it was like, what he saw. Describe the moment of the execution, if you could, for us.
Well, it appeared that Paul Hill was in great pain, for, I guess, at the last moment. But he was smiling. He was smiling. He knew that he was leaving this world and going to be with his Heavenly Father. For me, it was very sad. Paul Hill was a close friend of mine, and I believe he was a righteous man who did a righteous thing and was unrighteously put to death by the state of Florida.
The following interview was taken 1 day before his execution was to be carried out. However, just from observing him, it's clear to see that the motivations he's describing which drove him to commit this horrible crime, he truly believes with every word. A major part of this could be his staunch ideology. However, with 1 day left to live and no hope of release or life left, there is no front, no acting, no false narrative, and no pretense.
The obvious question, hearkening back to 9 years ago, is why did you do it?
You ask why. Perhaps the most fundamental reason is the sixth commandment, thou shalt not murder, also requires the means necessary to defend innocent people, and that's what I did, was I used the means necessary to defend innocent people. I compare my actions in my mind to the shootings at the Columbine High School. If I had killed one of the murderers there at the Columbine High School, people would not have objected to my actions, because I would have been saving born children that were grown up. But the fact that the people I saved were unseen, and the murderers that I killed were legalized murderers, people don't get the connection. But yeah, if someone were standing on a playground with a rifle shooting children on the playground, it would be your duty to come up and use the means necessary to stop him. And that's similar to what I did. I used the means necessary to restrain this abortionist. And I confess that the force I used was extraordinary. That was because the circumstances were extraordinary. Under ordinary circumstances, if a murderer is killing innocent people, for instance, on the school playground, all you got to do is get on the phone and the police will immediately come and restrain him, shoot him if necessary. But if I got on the phone and said that about the abortionist, they would have given me a once-over instead of the abortionist. So in those extraordinary circumstances where the abortionists are being protected by the police, I believe that the force that I used was reasonable, because if I just wounded him, it's highly probable that he would return to killing innocent children. They'll say, well, you acted as judge and jury and executioner, and I said, no, I wasn't acting in the capacity of civil justice. I was acting as an individual. And others say, well, you went to war against the government. In order to do that, you had to have a civil magistrate. And I said, no, I didn't go to war against the government. I just acted as an individual. And individuals can defend their own children without the permission of the government. You don't need anyone. It's an inalienable duty to defend innocent people from being murdered. It's well known that the innocent should be defended with force. And that if you believe abortionists are innocent, you should uphold the force necessary to defend them. But if you believe the unborn are innocent, you should uphold the means necessary to defend them and not their assailants. I mean, it's irrational to say abortionists are murderers and then reject the means necessary to restrain them.
How can you reconcile being a Christian and being pro-life with what people call two murders?
Well, murder is unjust killing, whereas killing a murderer under many circumstances is justified. So I disagree with those who say that what I did was murder. And I say that I prevented murder.
I know that you've stated very clearly that you are not only resigned to this execution, but that you feel honored because of the reason for it. But is your execution is it just? Is this a just action?
No. They're executing me for doing a good deed, and it's certainly an honor for me, but it's an egregious sin for the government to put not only someone who defended innocent life to death. I mean, it would have been bad. I would have deserved to be here under these circumstances if I had been an abortionist, or if I had even been an accessory to an abortion. But not only was I denied not committed murder by abortion, but I'm not guilty of standing there and allowing murder to take place. I actually did what was necessary to protect innocent people, and it's especially egregious for the government to kill me for having done a good deed. My trial, you might say, was a classic example of judicial tyranny. Since the government had legalized mass murder by legalizing abortion, they wouldn't allow me to expose abortion as murder. because this would have made them an accessory to murder. So therefore, they tried and convicted me without even allowing me to present my side of the case.
You know, there are legal steps that you could have taken all throughout this process
Right.
to avoid your execution.
Right.
Why aren't you doing that?
There are a number of reasons. When I was, soon after I was first incarcerated, the government announced their intention to seek the death penalty. And I, at that time, thought about and prayed about, discussed with a theologian, and, well, actually more than one theologian, and about what I should do. And I determined that the thing for me to do was not resist their efforts to kill me. To be quite honest, I mean, it seemed like a wonderful privilege to me to die for having defended innocent people. And I was glad to do that. And I didn't want to offer a lot of ineffectual arguments and resist their efforts to kill me, lest it looked like I was not willing to live up to the consequences of my actions. And I thought, ultimately I decided that more people would be saved by my not resisting their efforts to kill me than if I were to resist their efforts.
There are a lot of people trying to stop your execution, including some you have surprising allies out there. Are you able to access the news at all?
Yes, people are sending me articles and telling me about some of the developments that you're talking about.
The stepdaughter of the doctor.
I heard that she opposed my execution.
Yes, she's actively opposing it.
Right.
There are pro-abortion groups that are actively opposing your execution.
Right.
How do you feel about that? What's your reaction?
I think everyone's got to pursue their own calling. I don't object to people trying to save my life, but I don't believe I'm called to try and do that. And so I respect their convictions, and I appreciate the people who respect my convictions. But yeah, it's nice to have people trying to save your life. It's encouraging. I wouldn't want people to want to see me dead. My wife and children and immediate family, they don't want to see me dead, and I am very profoundly grateful for that. And I thank the people who are trying to save me, even though I don't believe I'm called to the same sort of action. I really miss my children very much, and my response to that was just to try and rejoice in the Lord as much as I could. That's how I respond to trials and difficulties. I just try to rejoice in them and embrace them. And so I've done a lot of rejoicing since I've been in prison.
As your execution is approaching, how is your family dealing with this?
Well, that's an extremely painful thing for them. My wife and 3 children were sitting in the booth right where you're sitting right now yesterday at about this time. And we spent about 2 hours doing all we could to keep from just breaking down and sobbing. So it was extremely difficult, especially on my two daughters, teenage daughters. And so yeah, it's no question about it. It's a very heart-wrenching, difficult situation.
We understand tomorrow you're going to be allowed that final visit.
Right.
What are you going to say to your family? Have you thought about it?
What am I going to say to my family during the last visit? We'll probably try and keep it light and keep smiling and not say things that would evoke deep emotions and tears and that kind of thing.
Your execution, as you're well aware, is scheduled for 6 o'clock tomorrow.
Right.
Are you looking back and looking forward? Are you at peace right now with yourself and what you did?
Oh yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, if I had to do it again. If I were put in similar circumstances, I would act similarly. No, I don't look back and wish I had done anything differently. I look back and I stand amazed that God gave me the privilege of acting as I did, and that what I attempted to do was accomplished as it was. And so I look back and I'm thankful that the Lord gave me the opportunity to stand for this principle and to effectively use the means necessary to defend innocent people.
Death row interviews are essentially the final snapshot of what that individual wants to be remembered for or as. Their final moment to share their true perspectives, whether that's to reiterate their innocence, to lie, to lambast the police, investigators, or courts, or to seek some kind of final absolution before it's all over. Perhaps one of the most iconic death row interviews was given by none other than Ted Bundy. Theodore Robert Bundy died as one of America's most notorious and well-known serial killers. In the 1970s, he raped and murdered at least 30 women using his charisma and charm or even a fake injury to lure them to his car, where he would restrain them, drive them to a secondary location, and sexually assault and kill them. He would also keep some of the severed heads of his victims as trophies in his apartment and continue to perform sex acts on the corpses. All in all, Ted Bundy was a pretty bad guy. However, his death row interview would go on to become one of the most fascinating prison interviews to this day. The following are snippets of that interview, which was done approximately 10 hours before his execution.
Ted, it is about 2:30 in the afternoon. You are scheduled to be executed tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock if you don't receive another stay. What is going through your mind? What thoughts have you had in these last few days?
Well, I won't kid you to say that it's something that I feel that I am in control of, or something that I've come to terms with, because I haven't. It's a moment-by-moment thing. Sometimes I feel very tranquil, and other times I don't feel tranquil at all. What's going through my mind right now is to use the minutes and hours that I have left as fruitfully as possible and see what happens. It helps to live in the moment, in the essence that we use it productively. So right now I'm feeling calm, and in large part because I'm here with you.
For the record, you are guilty of killing many women and girls. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes, that's true.
Ted, how did it happen? Take me back. What are the antecedents of the behavior that we've seen? So much grief, so much sorrow, so much pain for so many people. Where did it start? How did this moment come about?
That's the question of the hour, and one that not only people much more intelligent than I have been working on for years, but one that I've been working on for years and trying to understand. Is there enough time to explain it all? I don't know. I think I understand it, though. Understand what happened to me, to the extent that I can see how certain feelings and ideas developed in me to the point where I began to act out on them. Certain very violent and very destructive feelings.
Let's go back then to those roots. First of all, you, as I understand it, were raised in what you consider to have been a healthy home.
Absolutely.
You were not physically abused. You were not sexually abused. You were not emotionally abused.
No way. And that's part of the tragedy of this whole situation, is because I grew up in a wonderful home with two dedicated and loving parents, one of 5 brothers and sisters. A home where we as children were the focus of my parents' lives, where we regularly attended church, 2 Christian parents who did not drink, they did not smoke, there was no gambling, there was no physical abuse or fighting in the home. I'm not saying this was Leave It to Beaver.
It wasn't a perfect home.
Well, no, I don't know that such a home exists, but it was a fine, solid Christian home, and nobody, I hope no one will try to take the easy way out and to try to blame or otherwise accuse my family of contributing to this, because I know, and I'm trying to tell you as honestly as I know how, what happened, and I think this is a message I want to get across. But as a young boy, and I mean a boy of 12, 13, certainly, that I encountered outside the home again, in the local grocery store, or the local drugstore, the softcore pornography, what people call softcore. But as I think I explained to you last night, Dr. Dobson, in an anecdote, that as young boys do, we explored the back roads and sideways and byways of our neighborhood, and oftentimes people would dump the garbage and whatever they were cleaning out of their house, and from time to time we'd come across pornographic books of a harder nature than more graphic, you might say, more explicit nature than we would encounter, let's say, in your local grocery store. And this also included such things as, let's say, detective magazines and more hardcore.
Those that involve violence.
Yes, yes, and and this is something I think I want to emphasize, is the most damaging kinds of pornography. And again, I'm talking from personal experience. Hard, real, personal experience. The most damaging kinds of pornography are those that involve violence and sexual violence, because the wedding of those two forces, as I know only too well, brings about behavior that is just too terrible to describe.
Now, walk me through that. What was going on in your mind at that time?
Okay, before we go any further, I think it's important to me, and that people believe what I'm saying, to tell you that I'm not blaming pornography and not saying that it caused me to go out and do certain things. That I take full responsibility for whatever I've done and all the things that I've done. That's not the question here. The question and the issue is how this kind of literature contributed and helped mold and shape the kinds of violent behavior.
It fueled your fantasies.
Well, in the beginning, it fuels this kind of thought process. Then, at a certain time, it's instrumental in what I would say crystallizing it, making it into something which is almost like a separate entity inside. And at that point, you're at the verge, or I was at the verge of acting out on these kinds of thoughts.
Now, I really want to understand that. You had gone about as far as you could go in your own fantasy life with printed material, and you made or printed and video or film photos,
magazines, what have you.
And then there was the urge to take that little step or big step over to a physical event. In the early days, you were nearly always about half drunk when you did these things. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Was that always true?
I would say that was generally the case, almost without exception.
All right, if I can understand it now, there's this battle going on within. There are the conventions that you've been taught. There's the right and wrong that you learned as a child, and then there is this unbridled passion fueled by your plunge into hardcore violent pornography, and those things are at war with each other.
Yes.
And then with the alcohol diminishing the inhibitions, you let go.
Well, yes, and you can summarize it that way, and that's accurate, certainly.
Ted, after you committed your first murder, what was the emotional effect on you? What happened in the days after that?
Well, again, please understand that even all these years later, it's very difficult to talk about it, and reliving it through talking about it is difficult, to say the least. But I want you to understand what happened. It was like coming out of some kind of horrible trance or dream. I can only liken it to after, I don't want to over-dramatize it, but to have been possessed by something so awful and so alien and then the next morning wake up from it, remember what happened, and realize that basically, I mean, in the eyes of the law, certainly in the eyes of God, you're responsible to wake up in the morning and realize what I had done, and with a clear mind and all my essential moral and ethical feelings intact at that moment. Absolutely horrified that I was capable of doing something like that.
You really hadn't known that before?
There is just absolutely no way to describe, first, the brutal urge to do that kind of thing, and then what happens is once it has been more or less satisfied and recedes, you might say, or spent, that sense, that kind of energy level recedes, and basically I became myself again. And I want people to understand this too, and I'm not saying this gratuitously because it's important people understand this, that basically I was a normal person. I wasn't some guy hanging out at bars or a bum, or I wasn't a pervert in the sense that, you know, people look at somebody and say, I know there's something wrong with him, and just tell. I mean, I was essentially a normal person. I had good friends. I led a normal life, except for this one small but very potent and very destructive segment of it that I kept very secret and very close to myself and didn't let anybody know about it. And part of the shock and horror from my dear friends and family years ago when I was first arrested was that there was no clue. They looked at me and they looked at the all-American boy, and I mean, I wasn't perfect, but I want to be quite candid with you. I was okay.
Yeah, you know, if I were able to ask you the questions that are being asked out there, one of the most important as you come down to perhaps your final hours, are you thinking about all those victims out there and their families who are so wounded, you know, years later, their lives have not returned to normal. They will never return to normal.
Absolutely.
Are you carrying that load, that weight? Is the remorse there?
Again, I know that people will accuse me of being self-serving, but we're beyond that now. I mean, I'm just telling you how I feel. But through God's help, I have been able to come to the point where much too late, but better late than never, feel the hurt and the pain that I am responsible for. Yes, absolutely. In the past few days, myself and a number of investigators have been talking about unsolved cases, murders that I was involved in. And it's hard to talk about all these years later because it revives in me all those terrible feelings and those thoughts that I have steadfastly and diligently dealt with, I think successfully, with the love of God. And yet it's reopened that, and I felt the pain and I felt the horror again of all that. And I can only hope that those who I have harmed, those who I've caused so much grief, even if they don't believe my expression of sorrow and remorse, will believe what I'm saying now, that there is loose in their towns and their communities people like me today whose dangerous impulses are being fueled day in and day out by violence in the media in its various forms, particularly sexualized violence.
One of the final murders that you committed, of course, was apparently little Kimberly Leach, 12 years of age. I think the public outcry is greater there because an innocent child was taken from a playground. What did you feel after that? Were there the normal emotions 3 days later? Where were you, Ted?
I can't really talk about that right now. That's weird. It's too painful.
Ted Bundy was executed this morning in Florida State Prison's electric chair. Just hours before
Since Bundy's death, an intense debate has raged in the media over Bundy's execution eve statements and the addiction to violent pornography, which he said fueled his desire to kill. I asked Dr. Dobson about the claim Bundy's statements should not be trusted.
None of the explanations that have been given by those who disbelieve Ted Bundy seem to make sense to me. They've said that he was trying to get rid of the guilt. He was trying to accommodate the investigators and so on. A man who does not want to die does not confess to 28 murders. A man who wants sympathy does not tell the world how he raped and dismembered all those innocent people.
Confessing to more crimes was not a method
What motive could he have
prolonging
had?
his life. Right?
It makes no sense at all. The man was making his final statement. I believe that. If other people don't believe it, they're free to believe what they want to.
So while police interrogations and the surrounding cases are surely compelling to listen to and analyze, what happens after, days, weeks, and even years after, is just as compelling. Hearing individuals with decades of time to reflect on the things they have done and the crimes they have committed and how it has affected their lives is a dark, but sometimes genuine look into the mind of the individuals who carry out these gruesome crimes.
And until I'm strapped to the gurney or they open the doors, then I'm gonna keep fighting. That's my hope. I mean, I don't hope to spend the rest of my life locked up. I'm not hoping for a stay to continue interacting in this environment. That's not what I'm asking and working on. So most people do, so they just want to live. And I mean, I wish us all to live, but this is not a place for a human being.
That would be a crazy fantasy that, hey, she fell down the stairs because the dog tripped.